All right, alhamdulillah. So would you say that da'wah is an obligation upon every single Muslim, whether, they're on the street or just at work or at school?
Wallahi, da'wah, according to the scholars, da'wah is a fard kifaya. So it's a communal obligation, which means a part of the community has to fulfill that obligation. Otherwise, the full community is sinning. Uh, so, for example, like Salatul al-Janaza, like, for example, the prayer of Janaza, you got a group of Muslims have to perform it on the dead person. If no one performs it, all the Muslims are sinning because no one is fulfilling that duty, right? But if a group fulfills it, then we don't need to do it too, right? This is generally the ruling of da'wah, but that ruling can change based on the scenario situation that you're in. If you are in a scenario where someone needs da'wah, he needs to learn about Allah, he's asking you about Allah, and you've got that knowledge, then it becomes fard ayn, becomes an obligation upon you as an individual to deliver that message. And this is the problem in the West today. A lot of us has become, especially in this country, or it depends on which country you are, it depends on your situation, but it becomes fard ayn upon you. It becomes an obligation upon you. There are people around you that are doomed to eternal hellfire if they die as disbelievers. You cannot just walk past them as if you don't care about their afterlife. If you've got any mercy in your heart as a believer, then you will want to engage with those people. You will want as much as you can, obviously, because knowledge is very important. We're not saying engage without knowledge. We're not saying speak without knowledge. We're not saying, because that can cause more harm than it does good, right? But we're saying for anyone who can convey anything that he knows, that he's certain of, it becomes an obligation for you at least. What I usually say to the people, look, if you're afraid that you don't have the eloquence to engage with the people, tell them information about Islam and teach them, what you can easily do, just give them a copy of the Quran. Say, look, here's my gift to you. I thank you. How are you? Are you okay? I've always seen you, and I wanted you to learn about us and what Muslims believe. Here you go. Would you like to read a copy of the Quran? No one will say ever no. No one will say no to a gift, Everyone will accept a gift. So you can always do it that way. If you feel you're not able to engage with them yourself, you're not able to answer their questions, just give it to them. If they then become curious after reading and they start asking you questions and you're not qualified, take them to someone who is. Go take them at least to an imam of a masjid or anyone that who's knowledgeable, who might be able to engage with them, teach them a bit, and take them a step forward. But yes, in most situations for Muslims who are in the West, these days, I would say it becomes a fard ayn, an obligation on each person. So
Right.
as I said, it all depends.
Yeah, beautifully said. Jazakallah khair. So I'm imagining a situation like you just painted. Someone goes to a regular Muslim, they ask a question. They see the person has a beard, or they pray, or they see a sister in hijab, and they ask a question, and the person doesn't know. Do you think that person should go back home, whether they interact with the non-Muslim again or not? Should they go back home and start learning their deen? Is seeking knowledge on Islam to be able to answer these questions also an obligation?
Yeah, absolutely. So that's another obligation, right? And subhanallah, yani, Sheikh Ibn Uthaymeen, rahimahullah, when he was given advice for the Muslims in the minorities, they were minorities in non-Muslim countries at that time. He gave a full lecture, which is 1.5 hours, something like that. I would advise anyone who speaks Arabic to listen to it because it's very beneficial, especially for people who are involved in the dawah, right? And he answers very common questions, things that we come up on a daily basis as people who try to do da'wah in the West, right? And what he mentions is, you cannot do da'wah without knowledge, right? He says, قُلْ هَذِهِ سَبِيلِي. He quotes the Quran, where Allah commands the Prophet to say, قُلْ, say, هَذِهِ سَبِيلِي, this is my path. أَدْعُو إِلَى اللَّهِ عَلَى بَصِيرَةٍ. I call to Allah Azza wa Jal upon knowledge. أَنَا وَمَنِ اتَّبَعَنِي. Me and those who follow me, those who follow the same path, they have to do the same thing. They have to be upon basira. They have to be upon knowledge. They have to be upon wisdom. They have to be upon understanding. You need to know what you're doing. And then the Shaykh, he says, because the person of knowledge can do attacking and can do defending. He can do both. You have to be in that position. Defending, meaning that you will defend any doubts or shubuhat that someone comes up and he tries to put forward against Islam when he's speaking to you, right? And attacking means that you will put forward the message in a strong, eloquent way that where you engage and give the people the message, right? So you have to be able to do these two things. If you're not able to do these two things, you cannot do proper da'wah, right? And you cannot do those two things without knowledge. Knowledge is literally your weapon. It's your shield and sword. If you have no shield and sword, you cannot fight, You're not going to be able to engage with the people. So then the Sheikh says what happens is that you will get da'wah done to you.
Wow.
This is what will happen, right?
No.
You will get those people with the shubuhat. Instead of you inviting them to Islam, they will take you away from Islam.
Wow.
And then the Sheikh says something very important as well. He says that you are a representation there of Islam. So when, and he gives an example, if someone stands in a public place and someone asks them a question about Islam, and then he's silent, he's not able to answer that doubt, how does that look for the image of the religion? How does that look for the image of Islam? The Sheikh has a question. He says that looks like the religion is being defeated, while in reality it's just an ignorant person standing who's not able to convey or answer these questions, right? And then the Sheikh mentions something important as well to keep in mind, because we don't want to discourage the people. The Sheikh mentions and he says that doesn't mean that you don't do da'wah when you're seeking knowledge. That's a very important thing to keep in mind, yeah? Because then people, they lose the balance. They say that, look, I'm going to do the da'wah. Sorry, I'm only going to do da'wah and gain the knowledge. So now I'm focusing on the knowledge. I'm not going to do da'wah. No, you can do both. But the Sheikh says what you will preach when you are learning and doing da'wah, what you can teach is only what you learn. You stay at what you learn. If you learn something, you stop there. That's what you do basically, right? So that's what the Sheikh, that's what the Sheikh advises. And he finishes by another thing, is that you need to have two things: the knowledge and the deeds. You need to combine between the knowledge and the actions. So you cannot be just a person who believes and say to the people, do Qiyamul Layl, and then you don't do Qiyamul Layl. Read the Quran, you don't read the Quran yourself, right?
Yeah.
So that would be like a general overview, I would say.
That's a beautiful point. And I'm glad you made the distinction, because I find a lot of people, and I think unfortunately it's only natural for human beings to want to do this, but whenever they don't know, especially if they're in a public sphere, they kind of make up an answer or just say what makes the most sense to them at the time. And then unfortunately sometimes what comes out is very, very incorrect. And may Allah forgive us and protect us from this. But I think the best approach would just be, okay, that's an interesting point. Personally, I've not looked into it. As an individual, I have not looked into it. Let me go back and find an answer. Let me go ask those who do know, and I'll come back and bring you an answer. I think that's the most respectable thing that could be done in that moment.
And the question is this: if I were to say this to someone who's not a Muslim, what is the worst thing they could say back to me?
It's a great
question. They cannot say anything. All they can do is they say, okay, I respect that. They have to respect you. You've stated that, look, this is not my field of knowledge. The problem, people are afraid to look bad. But in reality, you will look good because they will respect you, that you stop in what you know. You only say what you know. And there's never going to be any bad response that you would receive if you say that.
Yeah. Amazing. Absolutely. Especially since you're supposed to look the religion. You're supposed to make the religion look good. Imagine you're focused on making yourself look good. Now Islam looks bad because you're trying to show off or whatever. May Allah forgive us, man.
Ameen. Ya Rabbi. Ameen. Ya Rabbi.